So I'll go ahead and start recording so that we can keep record of this and we can share with you after the session. Okay, we need some order in the house, otherwise this is not going to work out.
Opening. And now they're getting a real taste of unfettered free speech. Deepfakes of their dear leader being beheaded.
I check Brian.
Questo Luigi, secondo me. Poi.
I check Brian.
Sorry, I was unmuted.
Okay, so could you help with some order? Hey, whoever,
Yes.
whoever is, I don't know, I'm seeing so many icons, I can't even know who's speaking.
Let me help you with that. Guys, please mute yourself.
All right, so let's get started. This will be a session on introduction to web development. So we'll look at so many different things, but which are all related to web development. We'll have slides that will help us understand the basics of different technologies that is in web development, different scenarios of how do we connect to each other over the internet. So mic check. Gab.
Yeah, I'm muting them. So please mute yourself. Please mute yourself.
So yeah, I was saying that we'll take a look at different scenarios that will help us understand how this whole thing of web development happens. So without further ado, I'll just go ahead and get started. Then if you have any questions, you can note them down. Halfway through the presentation, we will do some Q&A so that you can ask questions that you have at that moment. Then we'll again have another Q&A at the end of the presentation. All right. So welcome to Web Development Introduction. My name is Samuel Nishimwe, told you, and I'm the Senior Coordinator in the Engineering Program at Andela. I'll be the one taking you through the slides to help you understand the basics of web development. So, what do we know about web development in general? I'll ask, so I like sessions to be interactive, so I can ask questions at any point. Feel free to come off mute and tell us what you answer. I highly encourage people to come off mute. I highly encourage people to come off mute and say out what they like, what could be the answer instead of typing in the chat. So unless you have like background noise and you think you could disturb the meeting, but if you are able, I highly encourage you to come off mute and just answer depending on what I would have asked and if you have an answer for that. So I'll need to turn off notifications so that we can follow pretty well.
Yeah, no.
Make check.
Check. So let's get started. So we'll have goals for this presentation. And the goals will be in line with what we want to learn, the concepts, the ideas, everything that we want to be able to understand by the end of this session. So what are some of those goals? We'll talk about how the internet works. I'm sure many of you have been at in this situation where you have to say, oh, MTN, I don't have internet. Actually, hi, MTN, we don't have internet at home. Or like some of you have complained on Twitter to MTN that, oh, your internet is pretty bad. We can barely, watch a video on YouTube or something like that. So we'll see in short how that works and what that entails. We'll see networking, which is not social networking. So you've all done social networking. You probably have friends on social media that you keep in touch. We'll talk about networking, but from a different aspect. So we'll be looking at things to do with packet transfer, if you understand what that means. We'll look at browsers. Browsers, what are those? And what could Netscape mean? If you have an idea of what that is, well and good. If you don't, then we'll talk a bit more about it during the session. Talk about DNS. Oh, do you mean DNA? Someone is having their mic on. So we'll see if I mean DNA, but we'll talk about something called DNS. We'll see if it has any relationship with DNA, which is the smallest part that build our bodies. Talk about search engines. Seriously, Google it. I'm sure some of you have, I've been told, not like you're in the middle of a conversation with someone, then you tell your friend like, hey, I'm actually like, this is true. You give them like a fact and they say, no, that can be true. And you're like, seriously, Google it, it's true. So we'll see what are search engines and how are we able to use them the way we do. We'll talk about text editors. So we'll see, can think of Microsoft Word. I'm not quite sure if that could be qualified as a text editor, but we'll talk about text editors in general. And we'll see if Microsoft Word is, one of those. Talk about caching technologies. How do you bake a cookie? I've if are we familiar with cookies? At least cookies that we eat. You can go to a bakery and you ask them a cookie. You could even ask one of the chefs, hey, how we do this? So we have a similar concept in the world of web development, and it's related to caching technologies. We'll see what that looks like. Look at the client server. I'm not sure if we're talking restaurants here or if it's something else maybe, but we'll talk about also the client server architecture that exists in web development. We'll talk about, hold on a second. And then the last thing will be, oh, sorry, the slides just went back. So we've seen all of this. Then we'll also see client server architecture and look at what this means. Is anyone familiar with this word? SOVIEL-MEHR. Anybody knows what that means?
No.
No.
Okay, we'll see what that means also at some point during the presentation. So let's get started with the internet, how it works. So the way we do presentations, if you were with me yesterday, then I'm sure you really have an idea. We start with what you know. So you tell us what you know, and then we share more information afterwards. So we'll start with what you know, then I'll share with you what I know also, and that way we've done a great exchange of information. So how does the internet work? Who can tell us how the internet works? Yes, Odas Sangano.
Internet works like I think how I know the internet. On my side, it's backbone of the web. Also, it can be the infrastructure that make the web possible. Then how I know it works. It uses the packet routing network that for the internet protocols and the transport control protocols. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Odas. Anyone else? Odas has told us that it's the backbone of the web.
Sorry.
So that's that it uses packet routing and things to do with protocols. Okay, so anyone else?
Sorry. Hello.
Yes, Gilbert.
On my hand, I can talk on network. Simply, I know that.
I can hear you. What are you saying? So okay, let me see. I'm seeing some. Okay, to be able to see the people that have raised their hand. So there's Mudachumura Bruno Blaise. Do you want to tell us something?
That is what I can add on my brother.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So basically, internet is a series of network. It's a series of network that connects devices around the world. So that's in my opinion. That's how I think that internet works. Thank you.
Please mute yourself if you're not speaking.
Okay, Tuyiseng Emerta.
I said that internet is the series of network.
No, we've heard you,
Okay.
Bruno. Yeah, thank you. Series of network that connects around the world. Tuyiseng Emerta. No, we don't have you, I guess. Gabriel Muwezima.
Yeah. In my opinion, internet works as a road for extracting information from different databases where they are stored and giving them to people who need this information.
So why did you choose databases? Are information only stored in databases?
They can be stored anywhere, but I think internet, what is the key of what I want to say is that internet acts as a road for transporting this information from where they are stored to people who need them, no matter the way they are stored.
Okay, yeah, that's better. If you say, regardless of how they're stored, there's a way that the information is transported to the people. That could be valid. And who else? Ndayizeye, Kevin.
Hello?
Yes, Ndayizeye, Kevin.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. In my opinion, internet is a network that connects computers all over the world.
Okay, but we're looking at how it works. So you've only done like a partial definition.
It's like a partial.
The definition is, yeah, so because now how does it work? What it is.
What I mean is a network that connects all other networks so that they can interact and perform a given task.
Okay. Terence.
Okay, on my side, I think you hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
On my side, I think the internet is like an interaction where the user or the client sends the request to the server to get to get like a response of the data he is searching for or she's.
Okay. So are we, how can we put together, are we coming up with like a proper definition based on your answers? I mean, we've had we've had at least about 6 people give us different opinions on what they think the internet is and how it works. So okay, is that way we can put that together and come up with our own definition? So to put that in perspective, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna do something. So we'll just take. Let's see. We'll just take. The definitions that have been given. Then we'll put them together, and we'll see if we can come up with our own explanation, one that we not get on the internet, about what the internet could possibly be and how it works. So I'll just share with you a document. Just a minute. So this is some reason this is taking quite some time, so I'll just go ahead and just leave out a few documents open to see if we can improve the speed. Okay, now it's here. So I'm gonna share with you a document in the chat. Then you'll go ahead and fill it with your own definitions, what you think it could possibly mean. Then afterwards, we should be able to come up with our own definition of what the web, of what the internet is and how it works. Okay, I see. So there are already some answers that have been shared with us. So I'll just, as you are typing, you can repaste your answers in this document, or if you can just put it there, then we'll just read it from the chat. What is the internet and how does it work? So yep, this would be the so you can add your answers below. So let's take a look at what has been shared also in the chat. Sheila Noella, no, internet transmit data and it helped to share them across devices. Okay, transmitting data and helping to share across devices. Sheja Emerick, client sends request to the server and the server provides a response. But See, when you want to talk about what the internet is, it's a lot easier to just focus on what it is, not in terms of how it operates and the ins and outs of, because if you start talking about clients sending requests, then this will pose more questions. So we'll ask ourselves, okay, what's a client in this case? What's a request? What's a server? What's a response? You see, your definition, your answer will raise more questions, and that's not what we want. What we want is to be able to come up with a definition that is simple enough for anyone to just understand it right away. So yes, this is good, and you could be on the right way, but make sure that whenever you put something out there, ensure that you don't cause even more confusion to the people that you're explaining to. Internet is a network of computers who talk to each other. So you mean computers which talk to each other, okay? Internet enables transfer of data wired or wirelessly between two different devices. Okay. We better use the chat, sir. Okay, I'm not sure what that means. We better use the chat. Only, I'm not sure what that meant. Maybe you meant to check the chat, which is what I'm doing right now. In the interconnection of devices, okay, is interconnection between two or more computers using protocol in order to share information. Okay, a worldwide computer network made up of interconnected networks. Okay, so we've seen global network. So the word network is here a number of times, different ways to computers communicate. Ishmael David, I think internet is a channel that links up different databases for clear and meaningful interaction. If you say database, then I think someone also about this earlier, then you've limited yourself. There's a lot more that can be shared and linked without mic check. Oh. ER or mic check and Trace.
Yeah, they have muted.
Okay, so let's see what we've been able to do on the Google document. So I'll just switch the presentation to the document so that we see what we have so far. Computer with information and can share them to other computers through network HTTP request, interconnection of computers, share information over network using IP/TCP. Remember, when we ask you the definition, you do not need to search online. Okay, just say whatever is in your mind today. Like the knowledge that you have so far is what you should put out here, not something that you go and search. If someone searches, you should not go and say, okay, now what is the internet and how does it work? Just say how you think because you use it every day. So what's your understanding? If you start from your understanding, then it's going to be a whole mass here. Interconnection of networks, a way of browsing as we use the web. A way of browsing. How could that be interpreted? A way of browsing simply moves data from one place to another. So we can chat, browser, and share. So that data moves over. Internet is a bunch of cables that run underwater. This is copied, so I'll just go ahead and ignore it. Internet, it's a connection of two more devices for purpose of sharing information using some protocols. Yes. See, there are words that have come up over and over again. So there is network, there is transfer of data, there is, or information, as some people have just called it information, and there is, let me see, which other words are very common? Protocols, maybe, like, so I've seen over and over people talk about TCP and all that. So we can say that the internet is an interconnection of networks, as someone has said, that share information using certain protocols. So we've combined many, some of the words that came over and over again. It's a network. It allows to transfer information from one device to another following certain protocols. So now we've come up with our own definition of what the internet is, and no one can say no. No one can say no, that's not the internet. To be honest, you can even go and also like put it on your blog or something, and it will also show up in the results if someone ever searches for what the internet is next time. So are we satisfied? Are we happy with the definition we've come up with? Simple, like this should be very simple. If someone asks you what's the internet, you should not give them a paragraph. Just give them in 10 words or less, explain what the internet is in 10 words or less. Because the more words you add, the harder it becomes for you to explain this to someone else. So it's just interconnection of networks that exchange information using certain protocols. So we have about 10 words and we have a definition of what the internet is. Do you see the style we've used to come up with the definition of our own understanding? Is it is this what was the experience like? You know, thinking about what you know and being able to, you know, come up with a definition. Wow, anybody wants to share with us how they're finding such an experience, or what was that like? So I'm seeing some people who have raised their hands. Let me see. But it's the same people that have been raising their hands all along. Emerte and Terence. So I'm not sure they want to tell us something or they just forgot to stop raising their hands. If you forgot, then whenever you hear this, just remember to lower your hand. Okay, thank you, Terence. I think you've just seen it. Anyone wants to tell us what the experience was like, or we should get back to the presentation? Are you happy with the definition we've come up with of the internet?
Yes.
Is it simple?
Yes.
Is it simple enough to understand?
Yeah, it's very clear, son.
All right.
Definitely. Very good.
Good. I'm glad to hear. So we'll just now go ahead and see what we have else apart from the definition that we come up with. Can you see the slides again?
Yes.
All right. So let's proceed. So the next slide is, it just says that it's a network of networks, interconnection of computers that covers the whole world. Devices are interconnected using routers. Every device can be uniquely identified. So who wanna tell us what do we mean by devices can be uniquely identified? What does that mean? Anyone has an idea what that means?
Hello.
Mic check.
I think that it means that every device has something like an identifier as that makes it unique, or that distinguishes it from other devices. That's what I hear from a device. Any device can be uniquely identified.
What do we call this identification? Technically, what do we call this identification?
IP.
Yeah, thank you. So here we're talking about IPs, internet protocols. So data exchange between computers happen over wires, air, or satellite. So you could be familiar with different ways that this data exchange happens. So let me ask. Let me right now. Mic check. Tamim Brown, please mute your mic. All right, so let me ask, right now, where you are, how are you able to follow this meeting? Are you using air, are you using satellite, or are you using wired connection? Who wanna tell us?
Yeah.
Hey.
Air.
Me, I'm using wired.
Okay. Some people are using wired, others.
And very though.
No one is using satellite?
I don't think so.
You've consulted everyone on this call and you're very sure that no one is using satellite.
He's assuming.
You've assumed. Don't assume.
I don't use it.
Okay, so yeah, well, most of us will be using, so actually the answer is a lot more complicated. So even if you think you're using air, you may be using air at your terminal. In other words, you may be using air because your device, your computer or phone is wirelessly connected to a network that you are connected to. But if we go higher, if we go past your local network and maybe you're subscribed to Airtel, for example, you may find that Airtel is at some point using at some location, you might find that they are using cables. See, I don't know if you've heard of things like optical fiber, like communications using fiber optics. So things like that, they are large cables that run from Airtel headquarters to like Mombasa, and they go underground all the way, then they pass through the ocean, connecting to some other terminals somewhere else in the world that you may not know. So even if you may not be using, you may be using wireless communication at your terminal where you are with your device, you might find that for this information to be relayed all the way to you, at some point, some wired connection was involved. Now, obviously, we may not be using satellite because satellite is usually used in locations where it's hard to either connect to cell towers, or there's no infrastructure in place for cell towers or some other forms of communication, because it's a lot more expensive. If you were to do like satellite communication, that you would be paying quite a lot more than you are paying right now. So it's very unlikely that we're using satellite, but it's also could be a possibility, but something that you should know. So web browsers and apps are the primary ways to access content on the internet. Who can tell us, so apart from web browsers and apps, what are other ways that you access internet content? Mic check. Gaspar Kaitare. You want to tell us something?
FTP.
I can't hear you very well.
FTP.
Are you saying FTP?
FTP.
Who is there anyone who heard what Gaspar is saying so that he can tell us?
I think it's FTP.
FTP. What's FTP?
Yeah, I don't know.
File transfer protocol.
Well, it's a protocol, but so how do you how are you able to use that protocol? Under what circumstance would you use that protocol?
It comes if you are sharing file to your machine.
Yeah, so you want to share files with someone else, and how often do you do that? And when you do it, what do you use to share those files? What do you use?
Hello. I think you use FTP. So if you are downloading like movies or some which have been shared from so many times.
So we can hear, well, I can't, well, at least me, I can hear you very well, but I was trying to ask, let's say you want to file share. Okay, let's say you want to get a movie from the internet, okay?
Yes.
Okay, so what are you going to use? Yes, you're going to use the FTP protocol, but what are you going to use to get that movie?
You're going to use through the internet.
So what?
You're going to use the internet.
And how are you going to connect to the internet?
Through the FTP protocol.
Okay. Well, we are not. You don't get where I'm headed with this, but all I wanted to make sure that you understand is that FTP is a protocol. A protocol is not an app that you can use. So a protocol is inside an app.
You're going to use a browser. Then you type in the URL.
The
URL.
Exactly. So now
to request the file.
We have a browser already here in the bullet point. So my question was, what are other ways that you use apart from web browsers and apps? Then you said FTP, but to use the protocol, then you need some sort of app. So that's why I was asking, how do you now, what embodies the protocol? That was my question. And now you've said it's a browser, yet we have it here. So I was looking for other ways that we use.
Hello?
Oh, you are straining our ears. I don't know if it's you or someone else.
I have something to share.
Okay, please.
according on my side, I think it is impossible to access the web browser, to access the web content without web browser, but somehow you can use Python to access the web content using web scraping. I think it is possible.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, now you've introduced something else. Thank you. David. Yes, you want to tell us something?
Check.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I think apart from applications and website, from my own understanding, we can even use cloud storage services like Microsoft. I don't, maybe that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Check.
Yes, check. Is a lot of noise where you are. Benti, who is Benti? Do you want to tell us something? Benti, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, actually, in my opinion, and I think there is no other way also you can access content on the internet without use the web browser app, because all those protocols are included in the web browser.
Okay.
All those protocols, yeah.
I've seen Sheila Noala. You had your mic on. Did you want to tell us something? Mic check, Sheila. Are you telling us something? I'm not sure we can hear you.
Are you getting me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, so I wanted to say that the web browser is it's just like a channel to use internet, and an application. And even softwares, computer software, I think they are the only ways you can use internet.
Okay, thank you. So we can combine what Sheila is saying with what David is saying. David was saying that you can use like Microsoft Word. Yes, you could actually use Microsoft Word to connect to access certain content on the internet, but it's limited. So you could use it maybe to, let's say, to get suggestions on how to, maybe if you want to do spelling that you're writing, like a text, like an essay, or let's say you want to add backgrounds in your document, you could use Microsoft Word to access the internet, but it's limited in that case. You're not gonna use it to watch videos on YouTube. That will not be possible. Now, something else that was said, that you could use like web scripting. That's actually a different way that I was looking forward to hear from you, because we can use terminals to access the internet. Do we know how we can use a terminal to access the internet?
Yes, you know.
Yeah, so terminals are one of the other ways we can use to access the internet, and there are some of the ways that people used internet in the past, before browsers were everywhere, before everyone knew about a browser and they became like mainstream. People were accessing the internet by using terminals. And now apps are easy to understand. You have apps on your phone, and you have apps on your phone. You can use different apps. You have like a YouTube app. You can use it to watch videos on YouTube. Now, the only difference is that apps will be specialized. So, for example, if you open the YouTube app, you'll not use it to read the news. Okay. If you want to, apps will be specific to one thing. If you mic check, Umuhoza get.
Muted him.
All right. So apps will be specialized, well, will be used for certain purposes, not for everything. So for example, if you use Netflix, if you open the Netflix app, you'll only watch stream Netflix content. You'll not use it to read news, for example. So apps will be specialized. You can even have like software on your computer that connects to the internet, and you use them to get updates, for example. But if you want something generic, then your web browser will be your primary ways, because with your browser you can access like software updates, you can access videos, you can access news, anything. Browser will be your go-to device, software, if you wanna go generic and get everything. So yes, that's what we had about the internet. Yes. Someone say
I
sorry.
was asking, how can you use the terminal to access?
I can hear you, but I think you said
How to access to the content using the terminals.
Okay. So does anyone want to share with us? Does anyone have an idea?
Yes.
Okay.
You can access the web content using terminal and the other command line tools by using command without any user graphical interface. But to use this way, you must know what you are doing, because you use only commands.
Okay, so you said you must know what you're doing. Okay, what is that? Okay, do you want to show us an example? Do you want to show us? Anyone wants to show us?
Sorry, but I think that terminals are limited, isn't it? All they are not limited.
What does he want to see?
Well, how can you visit a website using a terminal, for example?
How can you? What I know is how you can run a file, then access it.
You can run a file. What do you mean run a
Yes.
file?
For example, you can connect to a port, and then you access that port via a port terminal.
On the web or on?
Yes, on the web. The terminal gives you a link. Then if you click that link, you access the web.
Okay, do you want to show us?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. You can continue. Then when I'm ready, I can show you.
Okay, so at some
It will not take.
Question,
What?
please. Question.
What did you say?
Question, please.
Yes, question.
Isn't the terminals limited? Are they limited or unlimited? Can you access to the YouTube, Netflix when using the terminals?
Well, terminals will be limited because, for example, certain terminals are text-based. So since text-based, then like watching a video is going to be really hard. You could, one thing you could do is maybe use the terminal to open another app on your computer that could stream the video, but you will not be able to watch the video inside the terminal. So you just maybe use it to get it, access the content, then open it using some other external app on your computer. to watch the video. So it's limited, yes, but there are always workarounds of how you could be able to do it if you really want to do it.
So you can use it when accessing to news, Igihe, Inyarwanda, only that.
Yeah, yep, you can do that. Try, are you on Windows or Linux? Okay, if
Windows.
on Windows, I'm not sure Windows. If can you type?
But you can share with me anything. So I will look for the Linux or anything you tell me to do.
So yeah, look for the use of how to use the command wget. So I'll just put it in the chat. Let me see.
I finished again.
Oh, you want to show us?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So the way we can run a URL in. So we can do this. For example, this line says that the server is listening to this port, which is 5,000 as we declared here. So if one way I can use the terminal to run this folder. You can do. Yes. You see that the terminal gives us a link. So we can click on this link. My computer is going slow.
Okay, but yeah, yeah. So yeah, now they can.
So you see that Microsoft Edge is going to open on that port.
But there is also always a browser involved.
Yes, yes. To view something in a graphical way, you need the browser to display it.
So this is okay. Thanks for sharing this, but this is slightly different from what they were asking. Okay. Because now the browser is involved. Essentially, like what I was saying, that you may for certain purposes you may need to open another external app on your computer to be able to view the content, but we're more interested into doing it all in the terminal. And technically speaking, we were able to do that with another library. That mic check. Someone is having their mic on. Please mute your mic. We're able to do that with the help of another library. So so I could say that that's also another option. You could use that to access the internet, but it could be now limited, or you need some other external library to be able to do that, because by using that methodology, then you are only allowed to connect to certain hosts, not every single host. You'll have to turn on some other flag to be able to access, because essentially you are just accessing content on your computer. You did not visit any other computer. So yeah, that's also one of the ways that you can do that.
Yeah, I've also shared a video there how you can use links. It's called it's a terminal browser called Links, where it shows you like a black and white kind of view, where you're able to view websites in the terminal, fully in the terminal, but not video, just text. So you can also check it out.
Thank you, bro.
All right, so let's proceed. Now we can't talk about the internet without talking about networking. So this is what we're going to see what is the client server architecture, what that is. Some of the words that you've mentioned in that Google Doc will start to come up. So you can see request. Some of you have talked about request. Some of them have talked about packets. Oh, Nchuti, do not draw on my screen, please. So packets are used to move information from one location from one device to another. I was wondering, why do you think I used the word devices and I did not say computers? Does anyone have?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Because
why is
it
that?
can be any device like a telephone, tab, computer, television, any device.
Yeah. So yeah, it can be any. Yeah. So whenever, if you are learning new concepts, please pay attention to the wording that people use, because there are always reasons why people use it that way. So for example, I knew that I could have added computer, but if you say, if I did not use computer, then there must have been a reason, because I wanted to mean that it could be any device. It could be a computer, a phone, a TV, a watch, a fridge, anything that you can think of. So that's why I say use the word device. Each packet carries enough information about its source and destination. So according to the specification, each packet should carry enough information for it to be identified, to be identifiable. In other words, packets, well, they can be, but ideally we want them to be as independent as possible, so that they can be picked up and transported without the need to know what came before or what came afterwards. Now, this is going to change if you are doing things like file transfer, because if it's file transfer, you may want to know, the browser may need to know how to reconstruct the packet once it reaches the destination. But if we're just talking about the usual exchange of data, we want packets to be independent. The device sending the request is what we call the client. So we weren't talking about restaurants previously. We're talking about devices that send the request. And we were also talking about the device that responds to the request is the server. So the client server architecture now is an architecture that talks about how one device can send requests that can be responded to by another device over a given network. HTTP and FTP are some of the most commonly used protocols. So these are protocols that are used on the web to transfer information from one location to another. Do we have questions about this? Okay, then we'll proceed. Talk about browsers. What do we know about browsers now?
Thanks. A browser is application used to send and receive the information to the server using HTTP requests and HTTP response. That's my idea.
Okay, thank you. David, Ishmael. Did you raise your hand?
No, I did not raise my hand.
Okay, you need to actually, so you need to click on the icon again because your hand is raised. Anyone else wanna tell us? Innocenta. Innocent, your hand is up.
Thank you. Hello,
Yes, we can hear you.
my name is Percy,
Wow.
even though my name is written as Innocent, but browsers is like search engine, so it connects the device with the server. I think that.
Hold on. Okay, you said browsers are like search engines.
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
I don't know.
So let's bring this to the whole group. Okay.
Yeah.
So our browsers. So everyone else on the call, our browsers like search engines.
Hello.
Hello.
No.
No. No.
I don't think so. It's not search engine.
No, 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 no.
Suggestion of
So-
Felician. I think Felician speaker.
Let's have some order. So just first raise your hand if you want to say something, then and that way we'll be able to keep this under control. So I heard a lot of no's, and I wanted to hear like the yes. So you can.
No.
Are there any yes? Okay, so that means, but then did you say your name is Percy? So you might wanna check that again because it seems you don't. Not so many people agree with you by saying that browsers are same as search engines. So anyone else want to tell us what they know about browsers?
Thanks. The browser is not the same as search engine because search engine is the part of browser that helps us to write the URL in the browser.
Well, if you please let's have some.
But I would say that a browser is like a platform on which we operate online, such as like when you say like Google Chrome would be a browser. Firefox would be a browser. So it's really a platform on which you operate. The websites, those search engines would be used on a browser.
All right.
So for me,
okay, let's now I think we have a good understanding of what it is. So let's just see what the rest of content says. So the word that has been used is a navigator. So who is familiar with the word navigator?
I am.
Okay, how is it used? Under what circumstances is it used?
I think to navigate, I can say, is a way of searching something using the web.
Using the web or maybe on the web?
On the web.
Yeah, so navigator is actually, it's like a node term for browsers. So browsers like in the 1999, people were like, they were usually called like navigators. So that's why I put it in there so that if you ever come across navigator, you'll know what that is. So I've said that it's a piece of software used to connect to devices on the network. So what did I say? Connect to devices on the network. Why didn't I say the internet? Who want to tell us why I didn't say the internet?
because it can be shared from one device to the more devices.
No, that's not the answer. I'm
Mic check.
Check.
Okay, I think why you said network, the internet is like connection of different networks, and the navigator can work like on a Roku network or any other like small part of network, not the whole internet.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, you can use the browser to connect to like some network at home, not the internet. So if you and your friend are at home and you wanna let's say you wanna share movies. Let's say one of you has a movie and you don't have a flash drive to copy from one computer to another. You can create a network and you use that network to share the movie from one computer to another. And you can use a browser to do that. So in that case, you're not connected to the internet, but you are accessing content by using the browser. So the browser understands web protocols. So these are what we talked about earlier, like HTTP protocol and FTP protocol. So the protocols will say what each party should agree to in order for them to exchange data. And the browser will be like an intermediary between both parties. It will ensure that both the sender and receiver adhere to the same protocols and they all follow the same rules so they can exchange information. So that's why it is important that the web browser understands protocols that are used for communication on the web. URIs or URLs are used to identify resources. Who can explain to us what this means? Who want to tell us what this means?
I think that this URL acts as as the identification of every single website. Every website has its own unique URL. So when the user inserts the keyword in the web browser will fetch out a website which contain that keyword and will present you and will take you to that website. Also, you can put the URL like www.facebook.com, for example, and it automatically directs you to that website you want.
Okay. What's a URI?
Is what I can add. What I can add to what he said is that the URL are mapped to IP. So whenever you type a URL, then behind there is an IP mapped to that URL. So the IP is the identifier of any resource that wants to access that, or the receiver or the sender. Everyone has an IP that will identify him.
Okay.
Hello?
Mic check.
Yes, hello?
Are you talking to us or you are on the phone?
You can speak, we can hear you.
Yes. What I can add to my colleague, the URL can be considered as the address. Let me give a clear example. For example, if you need to search something in your cupboard, you need to locate exactly what is my pen, where is located. So if it is in the lowercase of Cupboard, you can locate there directly without you go there and there. So it is in that case, we use URL for locating our resource on the internet. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good example that you used of a
Yeah, mic check.
check.
Yeah, for me, on my opinion, what I understand on this UI, yes, it's an address, as my friend said. It's a resource of internet. It has two main components: protocol identifier and resource name. And in protocol identifier, that's where I find the HTTP and then you add a domain. But here what I want to mean is that it's a resource locator or a reference. So that's my answer. That's how I understand it.
Yeah, so but all of you are right. So we need a way to be able to identify exactly what we're looking for, and uniform identifiers, or previously also known as uniform resource locator, are the ones that are used to locate our resources on the internet. So mic check, I think you're very close to your mic and it's not good. So if you want to tell us something, then hold your mic well, and then you can now tell us. Okay, resources are allocated using domain name resolution.
Do you hear me?
Okay, it's better now.
Okay, thank you, RL. Normally it stands for Uniform Source Locator. I think it is a reference to the source on the internet.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, not on the internet. Maybe you can stay on the network, because you can even access content that is connected to the network.
Yeah, thank you.
Mute yourself. Mute yourself.
Okay, so saying we use, and this is where the things like domain name servers come in. So when you, and someone else just talked about it a few minutes ago. So if you say HTTPS slash, I don't know, let's pick a random website. Let's say https:/website.com, then the website will have its IP that is associated with it. Then there will be some sort of, it will be the name, the request will be sent to a domain name register. Then it will be resolved into its IP. Then the IP will now be contacted so that it can send back the resource that has been requested. So this is where, so I don't know if you've been following, but we are indirectly touching on some of the things that you saw in the previous slides of our goals. So far, let me see if I can go back a bit. So among all this, we've talked about networking so far. We've talked about browsers, client server architecture, how the internet works, and we're now on DNS. So we've seen that DNS has nothing to do with DNA. DNA is a term that is used in biology, but DNS is different. It's in our world of computer science and web development. These are technologies that are used to map names, domain names, English-like names to the associated IP addresses so that resources can be located by computers and can be remembered by humans easily. So imagine, I think if you've done computer science, then you know about this. How would you feel if you had to memorize every IP address so that you know what address, so that you know which website to go to? Like every time you need to visit facebook.com, you need to know its IP address 1.23.55. And now we even have IP version 6, which now is even using even more octets. So you would even be, it was even going to be harder for us to be able to do that. So to make things easier, we just have to memorize the actual names. For example, youtube.com, then the browser will figure out how to identify the associated IP address so that it can locate the resources that we're looking for. Caching and cookies can be used to store temporary and permanent information. So remember, I was talking about how to bake a cookie as part of our goals. So these are ways that we can store permanent or temporary information in the browser so that you can have a good experience when visiting the same website over and over again. So a simple example to be able to understand this is, you know that for example, if you visit, let's say, facebook.com on your browser, if you use the same browser every day, then at some point you'll just type in facebook.com and it won't require you to log in. It will just log you in immediately. So for the browser to be able to do that, Facebook will store your information in the browser. And when you send a request, it will just read that information, see if it's still valid, then log you in. So that every time you want to visit facebook.com, you do not need to log in. You just need to use the same browser that you've used before. Chrome.
Mic check.
Check.
I wanted to ask here on the previous point, is URI the same as URL? And if they are not the same, what is the difference?
So this has, I can say this is, the difference is more historic than technical. So over time, URL was the word that was common from the early days of the internet. But over time, people have said, no, you can, the word locator does not encompass everything that you can identify. And they just say, to better explain that there could be more than locating resources on the internet, we want to use the name identifier. So this was just a way of ensuring that they find a definition that is more inclusive in terms of what they wanted, how they wanted people to still interpret it. So this was suggested actually maybe very recently, about maybe 10 years ago or so, but it hasn't quite like caught up with the mainstream browsing because people still use the word URL because that's what they've always been used to. And so the difference is more technical and less, the difference is less technical and more like in the semantics of what, like people, they want to mean what they use it. So you'll see some place they'll say URIs, Uniform Resource Identifiers, and others will say Uniform Resource Locator. So it's not really to worry about it so much. You just need to know that both words have been, both acronyms have been used to mean a way of identifying resources over a network, and maybe in particular over the internet. Does that help?
So you mean nowadays the tenants just use URIs, not URL?
People are encouraged to use URIs, but like so many things, people are like, we don't want to do this. We're used to URLs. So like people are now encouraged to use the Uniform Resource Identifier, and you may find like people would like to keep up with like cutting edge technology, that might find them using Uniform Resource Identifier because it's what it's being encouraged today, but also URL is still very much in use.
Hello, I have a question.
Yes, please.
I wanted to know the difference between URIs and domain name resolutions. But regarding the resources, because you said that as it's stated here, the URIs are used to identify resources, and then the domain names also, as I can see, they are also used to locate resources. Where is the difference? Like, how are they different? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I like the fact that you have a keen eye on noticing that it is almost the same, but I want you to also take a closer look at the two words, to identify and to locate. So in the third bullet point, I used the word to identify. In other words, to know that something exists, to figure out that it exists. That is one thing. So let me give you an example. What's your name? What's your name? What's your full name? What's your name?
Kwahir Gauthier.
Kwahir Gauthier.
Yes.
Okay, so if I go to, let me see, if I go to the what do we call, the National Institute for IDs, the place here at
Kavind.
Yeah.
Kavind.
Yeah, so if we go, Kavind. So if we go there, if I can go there and identify your file, in other words, locate the fact, an individual that is called Kwahir Gauthier, then I can find out information about you. I can see where you were born. I can see your name. I can maybe find out your age, your parents, all that information. I can do that, right? But let me ask you, would that information be enough to find where you are seated right now?
I don't think so.
So yeah, that's where the difference is. There's identifying that a resource exists and where it could possibly be located. And there's actual locating. So while locating, the resource could be elsewhere, somewhere else where you did not expect. Okay. So when we're talking about identifying, is to see that these resources actually exist. In other words, for example, if you this could technically mean to find that there exists a certain server that could have a file path to the location that you're given. If it's empty, then it means it's slash. But now to locate the actual resource, we're then going to use the technology that is called domain name resolution, where we'll say, okay, so this is what you've given. Now, since we know that this is the IP. Now, where do we find this server? Where do we find the server? Where is the server that is containing the information that this user is looking for? Okay. So this whole process is what we call to locate the resource.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it means the URIs identify the resource and check if that resource is valid. And then
the browser. So here it's still, so I don't know if you noticed that, but this is still, we're still talking about the browser. So all this is what is the work that is done by a browser. So the first is a definition, second is what it understands, and these are the things that it can do.
Okay, so the browser is the one that checks that the resource, that's the resource is valid.
Yep. So it will first identify the resource. Then after identifying it, then it will locate that resource. If it finds it, then it will send it back to you. If it doesn't find it, then there are two possible cases. If the server exists, that means the server has been identified, but the resource does not exist, then the server will send you a 404, file not found. If the server has not been found, then the browser will now tell you that it's not been able to locate the given server. So those are two possible scenarios. So I was talking about the caching as a way to store information in the browser so that we can improve the user experience. Chrome, Firefox, and IE, Internet Explorer, I think now it's called Microsoft Edge, are some of the most common browsers. Any questions on this slide?
Mic check.
Check.
Here on cookies, I wanted to ask, most of the websites that we visit, they come a pop-up message saying accept cookies, and that pop-up message won't allow you to access the website without accepting cookies. But what does this really mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Anyone want to talk about that? Anyone has some information on that?
When you accept to use the cookies in a website, it means you are going to save your information in a web browser. But if you ignore it, it didn't store it because there's some web browsers didn't use the cookies when you disable it.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else want to add something? Yes.
Yes. I think check the cookies may be used for advertisements. I mean, they want to find out people's preferences, what they like to browse most of the time, the type of search, the type of products they like to look up on the internet. So for most of the free websites or free applications, they like you to help to allow them to access your information that could be useful for them for different purposes. That's why they want you to accept the cookies.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So the two of you have given both explanations that put together the reason why you are required to accept or reject. Most websites will also give you the option to reject the cookies. So the idea is this website, they want to store certain information on your computer. But in the world of information security, which is a whole nother topic that is very different from web development, there's something that we call like user consent. So in other words, if I am to do something that will have a certain impact of you, then you should agree to it. If you remember well, I told you yesterday, I think, did I mention that? Yeah, I did. For people that were with me, I told you that I will need your consent to record videos for this session. So because you are part of this code, so for me to, I can't just record without telling you that I'm doing it and you accepting to it. See, I could be, so in the world of information security, you can take me to court and say, I've recorded you without your permission, okay? So in the same vein, you cannot store a user's, well, they used to do it in the past, but at some point with the advocacy by web experts and this whole information security getting mainstream and people getting to know their rights, over time they realized that, hey, actually we do not have to store or retrieve users' information from the browsers without telling the users themselves. Okay, so many websites started complying with that. That's why they have to first say, do you want us to store information in your browser and to use this to improve your experience when browsing with us? Now, when they mean to improve your experience browsing with us, that's where the lines become blurry, because that could mean anything from helping you log in without entering password and email, to sharing with you advertisement that is relevant to the content you've been searching online. Okay, so this is like user arguments. You see, like I'm sure most of you just go ahead and you look through the user argument and say, I accept the terms and conditions. Okay, so when you say you accept the terms and conditions, these are some of the things that are talked about, which you may or may not read, but which will affect you or affect your browsing experience. So if you give this some thought and look, observe over time, you may see that certain websites will show you advertisement that is relevant to what you've been searching. So for example, if you've been watching videos on how to take care of your hair, take care of your hair, you might start to see advertisement of beauty products, of shops around that could have good hair lotion or something like that. So this is what it means technically. So whenever you accept cookies from a website, just know that it means they will read certain information from your browser, and they will store some information in your browser, and they will use that to improve how you use their website. Is that clear?
Wait, sorry, I'm not sure I'm clear with regard to the difference between caching and the cookies.
So caching is a technology of storing information for use in the future. So caching is a concept that is applied to so many other things, not just in web development. So it's just a way of having certain information stored so that it can be retrieved faster in the future. In other words, for example, they've now changed, but before, when you start like watching like a video, the video could start buffering so that it loads it loads all the way to the end, so you don't have to wait for it you don't have to watch a certain part, then it stops, then it again makes the request to get the rest of the part that is remaining. In other words, it just does everything in the background. Then after doing that, when you are watching, you don't have any interruption. It just goes smoothly. That could be also part of caching. So caching is just a technology in general. Then cookies are one of the ways that this is done. So cookies are a certain type of caching technology that websites use to store information on your computer. So maybe this the confusing part was the end. I should have probably done caching technologies like cookies. Yeah, I think that should have been. But if I wrote caching technologies like cookies can be used to store permanent and temporary information, I think that could have been a lot more clearer.
I have a question.
Let's first finish the slides, then we'll come back to all the questions
Okay.
because we're almost out of time. Okay, so search engines. We've already talked about this, so this is going to be pretty easy. These are also known as web crawlers. They use to search other websites. They start by visiting websites, also known as, which is the actual part of crawling. Then they build an index of the web every day. Then they use a set of algorithms to rank results. Then Google search is the largest player, with smaller ones like DuckDuckGo. Let's start with the idea of searching other websites. So what does this mean? It means that a search engine will pick a seed a seed is like a point of start, a point of reference. Then it will start from that point. Well, it will pick maybe one website. Let me give an example. It will pick, let's say, it will pick zoom.com. From zoom.com, it will look through the website, the pages. It will see what pages does zoom.com link to. It will also visit those websites. Then it will see which pages do those pages link to. It will again visit all those websites until it finishes the searchable part of the web. Does that make sense? Is that does that make sense? It starts from a certain point. Think of this as it's like a tree. So it starts tree with so many branches. So it starts from the root. It goes through, maybe a root has 2 branches. 2 branches become 4. 4 becomes 16. 16 becomes 32, all the way until it finishes the part of the web that is searchable. Because there is a part of the web that is not searchable. So a part of the web that is not searchable is usually not accessible by search engines.
Yes, should we say in summary that it's like, because it's a network, so it enters through a certain like entry, like point of entry, that's what you're calling seed.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
from that entry, it accesses the other branches of the network.
Yeah, that's right. You can think of it that way. So yeah, this is what we call crawling the web. You might see around like a word like in articles, like using the word to crawl the web. That's what it means. Then it builds the index of the web every day. So let me ask you, have you ever thought, let me ask you, for example, how do you think like Google search is able to find news that has happened in the morning today? How do you think that is possible? And when you like something that's happened today, you may find a result about it. And something that happened 5 years ago, it still has some results about it. How do you think it's able to keep up with everything that happens every other day? Anyone has an idea?
I think it's because it has more servers that connects to more internet connection to like more websites. It has the index on the web of those websites.
Partially, not entirely.
Thanks. On my side, I think Google is a big company that that have servers that information come from, but the Google search engine, it uses the AI technologies that store the data you search for. If you search something now, then on the next time you search it and you get it. I think that's why if there's something happen in the morning, then you search it, you get it. The Google, when you use Android is the product for Google. When you connect to the internet, I think to save it in its servers.
Well, that's I think you've taken us in a different direction. Part of that was correct, but that's not where we're heading. So what I wanted to mean, where I was heading with this is, I wanted you to think of the fact that the Google servers, they are always searching for new content. They are always searching for new content. Always. So like every other day, Google servers will build a new index of the web. It will check for new content that has been added because, for example, news websites, news editors will add new articles in the morning at work. Google servers will crawl the websites to see what new content has been added. It will give them a ranking and it will build an index. This index is the other day. And of course, it's possible because they have a large array of computers, but that's not the whole point. The whole point is that they do this from time to time to ensure that the index stays up to date. Now, after building an index, results will be ranked so that you get the ones that are very relevant to you in the top result page. So for example, if you are, let me see an example that I can give you. For example, if you are in Rwanda and you search for volcanoes, you probably see where the top results will have things to do with Visit Rwanda or like mountain gorillas or something like that, which is different from someone who is in like Denmark. If someone is in Denmark and they search for volcanoes, they'll see results that are different from what you're gonna see, because the ranking will be different for you based on, for example, the location where you are and like the weight that your search has in that area. So for example, in Rwanda, not so many people search for NFL, okay? So if you search for NFL and someone in the US searches for NFL, the results are not gonna be the same because NFL is a huge search word in the US, but it's not really a huge search word in Rwanda. Does that make sense? What is NFL actually? So anyone knows?
National Football League.
Yeah, so NFL is the football, the American, they call it also the American football. So yeah, Google search is the largest player, and we have others like DuckDuckGo. So if you want to try out a different search engines, I can say you try out DuckDuckGo and see how that works out for you. It has, it's built around the idea of privacy, so that instead of, so they advocate for not tracking users when building and ranking results for the user. So if Google already knows certain information about you, so certain some results might be tailored to your experience with Google, and DuckDuckGo says no, you do not need to do that. You can just provide a set of results that are independent of the person that searched for it. There's also like Bing by Microsoft and Momo. You can do a search and see what you find on the web. Any questions on that? So while we're talking about search engines, I remember there was a word that I told you to look for. I'm not sure if you remember, and someone else found the meaning of it. I was actually going to ask you to Google search the meaning of that word. So does anyone still remember? Well, we'll come back to that when we have time. So, but the last thing we want to talk about is text editors, which are environment that we use to write our code. So text editors, also are known as source code editors, or in this particular case, we're focusing at source code editors, but you may also have editors that are not source code editors. So what in our case, when we say text editors, we mean source code editors. Our high environment, write code with many features, that is development. They are highly configurable. They have features like syntax here, highlighting, code formatting, and debugging, and even things like undo and redo. But this is also common in word processing document software like Microsoft Word. So that's why I did not put much attention to that. And we have so many text editors. If you have a preference for a text editor, it's well and good. If you don't have any preference, use VS Code. VS Code is a text editor developed and maintained by Microsoft, and it's pretty easy to start with if you don't have a preference for an editor. If you want to try something a little interesting and adventurous,
Sorry.
hold on a bit. If you want to try something, adventurous and a bit interesting, I would say find out what we editors like VI or Emacs. So these are text editors that originate in the Unix world, but now there are extensions that can bring them to so many editors. You can have a VI extension to use in VS Code, so you can use VI screen orientation when writing code in VS Code, or Emacs. I guess there's also like an Emacs extension for VS Code, or even other so many other text editors will have extensions that will allow you to use VI editing or Emacs. Now, what was your question?
Is there any difference between, what's the difference between VS Code and the Visual Studio?
They're different. Visual Studio is the IDE environment that has been around from like 20 years ago. The Microsoft Visual Studio is the original environment that was used to build MSV products that are using Microsoft technologies, like especially when writing C# code. So they had so many things. So VS Code Microsoft Visual Studio could have things like web servers that come pre-installed with the editor, with the IDE. Actually, Microsoft Visual Studio is an IDE. It's like an IDE. Think of it as Eclipse if you are familiar with Java or NetBeans. So Microsoft Visual Studio is like NetBeans or Eclipse. Yet VS Code could be compared to like Atom by GitHub, or Sublime if you've used text editors for quite some time. So yes, they're different.
Thanks, I see.
Sure.
What do you mean by saying they're highly configurable? Can you come back to that second bullet, more or less, in the third?
Okay.
We're kind of going faster. Yes.
All right. So what editor do you use? Do you use an editor?
I haven't studied yet.
You haven't started. So so I want to ask someone.
I tried to do the GitHub thing yesterday, but
excuse me.
I opened the GitHub yesterday, but I haven't started using it.
All right. So I want to give you an example to show you what I mean by highly configurable. So I want to ask someone who has VS Code installed to share with us their screen, to show us what their VS Code looks like.
Mic check.
Check.
Yeah, mic check.
Can I share?
Sure. Go ahead. So as you can see, your VS Code, you have a light theme. No, you have a dark theme, actually, sorry. You have a dark theme. You have then the sidebar is on your right. And let me see. And let me see, open your terminal. Let's see what your terminal looks like. Terminal. Terminal is on the, terminal is next to help. So if you click on terminal right next to help, you can click new terminal. No, you're not doing what I'm telling you. Open your terminal.
Keep going.
Okay. Next to run menu, you can see the terminal.
No.
No, don't close.
Next to run.
Between run and help. Okay.
Okay, so you see that your terminal is on, also uses the Dart theme. It's, you start with users, C users, user. And you're using PowerShell as the default terminal executor. So PowerShell is the underlying engine that executes your PowerShell commands by default. So who asked the question about configurability?
Me.
So yes, so many things can be changed on this window. And while so we're out of time, so I will ask you so that we can add 15 minutes to our time. We're supposed to end at 12, so I'm gonna ask that we end at 12:15.
Yeah, sure. There is no problem.
Thanks. So
there's no problem.
Yeah, thank you. So many things can be changed. You can change the type of terminal that you use. You can change where this sidebar is, the one that's on your left can be changed. You can change the theme. You can change the font. You can change so many things here can be changed through settings. So is there anyone who has like a different environment, something that does not look like this, so they can share with us so that we see another environment that is different from this?
Yes, I have Sublime.
No, we're talking about, we just want to see how one environment, one particular text editor can be configured. The same text editor can be configured. So we want to see someone who has VS Code. I think I saw someone who has a light theme. Who was it earlier? Someone was showing us the port.
It was me.
Okay, could you show us again, please?
Sure, I've closed it. I'm going to open it again.
Okay, so no one else. Let me see if I can share with you mine, and so that you see some of the differences that I'm talking about.
Sorry, Samuel, is it necessary to download that Visual Code?
No, it's not. We're just using it as an example. So you can see my, oh, sorry. I don't know what just happened.
It's open.
Can you see it?
No. Yes, we can.
Sorry, it's mine open.
Okay, but now you can see it.
Yes.
So you can see that for me, I don't have a dark theme. I have a dark blue theme. You can see that my terminal is different. I use Bash environment instead of PowerShell, although I can't use PowerShell because I'm not on Windows. You can see that the bar that was on the left on the previous screen, for me, it's on the right. Can you see that? that the bar is here. And
yes,
yeah, and so many things. I'm sure the font is some different from what we're seeing on the previous screen. So this is what we mean by being highly configurable. Like you can change so many things to suit your particular needs as a developer. Does that make sense?
yes.
Okay, so remember we have so many text editors. We have just if you have a preference already, well and good, go ahead and use it for the next 4 weeks. If you don't, then just pick VS Code, and if you are not happy with it, you can come to me. I will buy you a drink or whatever, something else of your liking. You can just tell me after the 2 weeks and we'll talk about it. I can buy you something if you really don't like it. If you don't have a preference though, so don't cheat. If you have a preference, then we're not talking. So last thing that I wanted to talk about is what we call the classic roadmap. So the classic roadmap to web development goes like this. We'll learn about it. We'll start with HTML. We'll learn how to create pages. We'll just create some random pages. We'll look at how so many things, how you can structure a page by just using HTML. We'll see how we can link pages by using HTML. We'll see the new features that are available with the latest versions of HTML, like HTML5, and see what else we can do by just writing plain old HTML code. Once we're done with that, we are going to go ahead and go to our next part, which is CSS. In CSS, this is cascading style sheets. We will learn how to style web pages. We'll see how we can style pages so that they look, well, they look pleasant to the eyes, and they also provide a good user experience to the user. Once we are done doing that, then we'll go to the last bit, which is JavaScript. In JavaScript, what are we going to do? We're going to learn how to add interactivity, which I have striked through and replaced it with how to do anything with web pages. So when JavaScript started, like in the 1990s, it was just to add basic interactivity on the page. But 20 years later, you can do crazy stuff with JavaScript. So how to do anything. You want to build, well, let's say you want to add interactivity. Sure, you can do that with JavaScript. Do you want to build a virtual reality experience? You can do that with JavaScript. Do you want to create a 3D animations that maybe you can like do some role play game, like role play in like 3D gaming? Do you want to do that? Sure, you can find a JavaScript library that can help you do that. Do you want to create a user experience? Let's say, I don't know, like someone browsing through like a house by just using the browser, you can do that with JavaScript. So you can do so many things with JavaScript today, which is what it all started with, adding interactivity. This was the original idea, but it has now blown up into anything. So JavaScript will just help you to do just about anything that you want to do with the web pages. So this is what we call the classic roadmap. We do HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you know, if it's like a classic roadmap, then obviously there are so many variations to that. Some people will just start with JavaScript. Some people will just start with frameworks. They'll start learning from like frameworks like React or I don't know, or Java Spring Boot. They'll just start with, so people have taken on new variations of this, but this is what we call the classic roadmap to web development. So It's what we're going to encourage you to follow in order to get the most out of this web development crash course. And that marks the end of my presentation. So I have no summary, but I want to ask you, what have you learned? Was this helpful?
It was very helpful.
Definitely. Yes.
You're welcome. What have we learned? Anybody, 2 people want to share with us what they've learned in this session?
Actually, I can say that most of the things you thought I knew, but you improved my learning through all of the things. Thank you. Thank you so much.
What is at least that one thing that is new that you feel like you've learned?
Actually, about catching and cookies, I was confusing them and how it works. You said it, and I actually thought this is a good opportunity to explore more of them.
All right. Thanks. Someone else?
I have run it. This is not the first time for this point you have run, but I ran the internet and how it works, about search engines, about web protocols, and DNS.
Okay, thank you. Safi, no, it's Safi. Is it Safi or Safe? I don't know. Kevin.
It's safe, Kevin.
Oh, safe.
So, yeah, so to be short, we've just learned how the network operates, the websites, how they operate from scratch to what you can say at like the end, how the client accesses the website.
All right, that's good. So I'm looking in the chat, like I missed a couple.
For me, I came in a bit late, but I like the classic roadmap. It gives you an idea on how to, I mean, the way you begin and where you kind of end to be able to get to the website. So I like this one.
All right.
I'm seeing the classic roadmap.
Okay. Search engine allows you to search on the internet. Can one say cache stores mostly use or common data while cookies personal information? Yes, you can also say that. Thanks, Brian. Can't hear you somewhere. Dalia, sorry. Were you able to hear me eventually? I did not check the chat actually. I'm sorry. Check your connection. Wait. Does that mean you were not able to hear me for quite some time? Were you unable to hear me? Is that true?
No, it was a short period of time.
Oh, thank you. Oh, okay. I'm glad it was for a short while. Is VI same as Vim? Yes, Vim is an improved version of VI. Yes. I have it. Maybe you meant VI. Yeah, which is good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you already have it. I can hear you. I don't understand network, how to using air or satellite. This can help me. Hassan. Okay, I don't know who's speaking.
Yes, it's Hassan. It's not me, but I would like to talk.
Okay, I'll learn more about cookies. Not able to hear you. I'll learn for the internet. I don't understand how to using air or satellite. please can help me. Uwase Divine. So what I can tell you is, okay, in short, just what you need to know is that air is different from satellite. So air, I meant by using towers. So like MTN has towers that will send information to each other. But when we talk about satellite, we mean these devices that are not placed on Earth, like these devices that are placed up in the atmosphere. So instead of having information go through a number of towers on the ground on Earth to reach the destination, the information is sent in space to the satellite, then the satellite sends it to the destination. So it just goes to space, then to destination. But air, when we say air, we usually mean by using towers from one location to another, in short. Okay, I hope that's helpful. If you have more questions, reach out to me on Discord. My name is Samuel Ishimne, and I'll be more than happy to answer any question that you may be having. So we are officially out of time, and
sorry, someone.
Yes.
What about the afternoon course, the TTLs? What I don't remember.
Yes, so you'll get information on that, but this is where you'll be getting to know the people that you'll be working with, people that will be helping you with your daily work in terms of blockers or general help that you will get from this program. So they'll tell you more about how that's going to happen.
On email.
When do you have the other?
Say what?
On email or Discord, where will I get the information?
You've been invited, right?
Where?
Yes.
You've been invited to a call, aren't you?
Yeah, check your emails. There is an invitation that has been sent by Mike, and confirm that they will be there.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I got it.
Good. So I'll see you around on Discord. Thanks for everyone for being with me today. I was so happy to have this session with you, and looking forward to working with you more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thanks to you.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.